following is the conversation with Juliana Bolivar Sanchez, the Small Business Development Center Network at Troy University, Alabama. Juliana started her entrepreneurial career very early by helping her parents with their small business. And that's one thing that drives her passion for helping entrepreneurs. During COVID, she moved from Pennsylvania, from her role as an advisor and consultant to startups, to Alabama to take on her current directorial role. Without further ado, here is Juliana Bolivar Sanchez. Hi, Juliana. How are you?
Doing very well on yourself.
Super excited to have this conversation with you. So, can you tell a little bit about what you do, what's your current role, and what was your journey to get to that role?
So, I am the director of the Small Business Development Center at Troy University in a very rural area of Alabama in the Southeast. I got here throughout my experience since I was about 13. I started translating for my parents and in their business when it was like a part-time thing, side hustle for my mom. She had 3 jobs and she was trying to, build a business. So she spoke English, but she always felt nervous about, contracts and payroll, hiring employees. And she would take me to her meetings and it was my responsibility to make sure I translate properly and explain to her maybe, what we were getting into and be a support for my family. And I grew a passion for that. I became an entrepreneur myself at 16 before going to college. I went to college and in my drive was to absorb and meet people and to use that network and that information as a resource for my friends' parents and other entrepreneurs in my community. And that was, so I do have my dream job. I work with a lot of people. I talk to them, create programs that feed the gap in between their needs and in the assets that we have. And I am an entrepreneur myself. I have 5 online stores with my husband. So I do know the ins and outs of running a business, the challenges and the concerns that we have as business owners. So I do enjoy what I do a lot.
Thank you very much for this introduction. You mentioned a lot, but I wanted to unpack a few things you talked about. So where is your family originally from?
Yeah, so my parents are from Colombia. A long journey. My dad came to the States for work, and then my parents started growing their family. My dad, I think he arrived to Texas, and then they moved to Pennsylvania. I think they spent some time in Florida, but definitely my mom loved Pennsylvania when it was a small town feel to raise children. I started college in Colombia, where I also had clients. That's one of my first, client base in my consulting firm. I had clients in Colombia as well. And they trust me a lot, with coding websites for them and doing business plans. And I had the ability to write business plans in English for them as well. So that was like a nascent somehow back then when I was super young. So I am the first generation to be an American in my family. So
could you explain a little bit, I understand the businesses that you started and the help that you provided to your parents, but how did that help you secure this role at the university?
Well, I guess it all becomes part of a puzzle that you understand, like Steve Jobs says, looking back. Because I started running or helping them run their payroll, creating contracts and getting a set of abilities, skills, experience that I didn't know where I was going to put in the future, just performing my day-to-day operations. And then my mom also said, kind of like, fly. I want you to fly too. and have all their buses and live your own life. And I did. I had a job at a small accounting firm. Then I helped as a paralegal somewhere else in business services. I started my own consulting firm. So I started talking to people, selling my own services, still managing. My mom outsourced a part of her operations to my firm. So I had to put all that experience together, make sure that I was choosing a path in college that would enrich those abilities I had. And then I also found like I had amazing people. I had met amazing people in packaging, labs that could produce my hair care products. So it became like a long journey that at some point made so much sense. And when we decided to move to the South, my husband and I said, okay, we're moving to the South during COVID in 2020 is when I said, you would like to move to the South. And he said, well, I'm following you if that's what you want to do. And I said, December 2020, we're moving. And I said, I'm not taking more contracts here in Pennsylvania. And this opportunity came, it's just, the person who hired me, Donna, just retired the same that she hired me. And she said, welcome to Troy, I'm retiring. So I had to discover my role here.
Very cool. And I appreciate you sharing the details of the story. So right now, as the director of a small business center at Troy, what exactly does your day look like? What do you get to do every day?
Our days here, and I think that's the coolest part of my job. I really don't, I know what's going to happen, my schedule. That's the first thing I do when I look at my calendar in the morning. But some days are made up for, like today, a lot of calls with clients. I like to talk to all our initial first-time clients because I want to understand what their needs are. And I want to understand if there is a big need out there for marketing, or is it bookkeeping, or is it legal, understanding who's going to be my next partner in filling that gap. So I talk to clients. Today has been a lot of clients, but some other days it might be with a lot of faculty in leadership in the university to explain to them what the needs and how we can use assets and obtain more funding or obtain partnerships that will enhance the services that we provide. Other days I have meetings with organizations like chambers of commerce, directors of economic development, planning, events, outreach, bringing the community together, they are doing introductions. Hey, Juliana, this is a business owner that is coming to town, or they want to do Robin Lunch Fund. So I get to talk to a lot of people, different people. It can be our faculty, it can be our students are interested in having an apprenticeship here. To become advisors at some point. It can be my clients or the community. My office is really open to the community because that's who we serve.
And how big is your team?
So we have our program assistant, one of our collaborator business advisors, and 2 part-time advisors that work in more like an on-call basis or contractors. And they're a great asset to our team. Then we have another outreach collaborator. She does specific projects. She's great. She's very attached to the community, a lot of connections. So I guess the university gave us that flexibility of adding people as we need it. Although we need funding for that, and that's when your grant writing skills come. But I guess I've been fortunate about it.
I wonder how easy or hard was it for you to transition into the shoes of that retiring person who hired you? Could you talk a little bit? Were there any challenges, or was it like a completely easy transition?
Donna was like pretty. I was not filling her shoes exactly because she was the associate senior vice chancellor for communications, or she was more like in marketing and communications. But recently my project had transitioned under her. So she was more my direct report. The person who was before me had retired like during COVID a year. So my center was without a director for a year, kind of surviving. And then my direct report, like my direct supervisor, retired. And I have a team that was 2 contractors that they really were kind of holding the fort in the meantime, not so much attention on like taking on more people. So I had to basically learn my role and onboard myself a little bit. I was, again, I don't know. It's just how the dots get together. During COVID, I worked with multiple organizations doing PPP applications. And one of them were the SBDCs. And I was a contractor for SBDCs in other states. And I'm always asking questions, figuring out who's my client, because I was a contractor and I wanted to talk to them, be appropriate about their budgets, understanding their budget cycles and all that. So I had a research, I have a back knowledge about that organization in specific. So I knew what I was getting into that way, but it was developing processes and ways that we could get it first going, and good operation practices. Just coming from a year without a director, there are a lot of things that you need to bring back to speed, organize, establish on your own way. So my first year was bringing the center back on track. And then the second year was, what else can we do? And growing our outreach and growing the kind of programs we can bring to our community.
When we talked previously, we mentioned such a term, intra-preneur. You essentially joined in that role, like entrepreneur, but inside a big organization, the university. Were there any differences? Because a lot of things you mentioned are similar, but were there any differences of things that you found surprising in this new intrapreneurial role?
Yes, that is a thing. I was never on intrapreneur before, but I cannot stop creating. So, like I always have, even this morning, I had a meeting with a possible partner organization, and they were telling me about their challenges, and I'm like, you could do this, and I'm like, hey, no offense, but this is an idea you could implement. I am a problem solver, I guess, as well. So I'm always creating solutions and things that we could do. I think it's good that you have a big organization behind you, because it gives you security that you have a lot more assets. Like when you are in a small business, you're on your own. Like you have to figure out if this idea is good or bad by trying and failing and starting over again and not being personally hurt by that. As an entrepreneur, I think you're well more protected because you have multiple people looking into that, which can be good and bad because some people might not understand the concept. Again, that I'd be very fortunate. That has not been the case. Sometimes it was like, I think you're crazy on this. If you want to apply and do it, it's your thing. But you get a lot more like eyes. You have a little bit of support in the areas that you might not have strength. So we have, for example, the internal accounting department. So anything that when it comes to implementing a program, we have somebody helping us and keeping us on track on that side. The part of the reporting, I do write the reports, but we also have sponsored programs looking over. So as an entrepreneur within an organization, you have to leverage the assets that you have to take the best of the possibilities that you have in a new project.
So let me ask you a follow-up on this. You are a new person. You're a young woman and someone who is coming into an established organization with some rules and processes, and like you said, like some established thing. How do you get people to trust you?
You have to work hard first and show them results. And they know that I'll be here on a Sunday after church if I have to be here, or I will be here. If a project is targeting people that have full-time jobs and I have to stay here, and it's a commitment also. I don't expect from my team the same, type of commitment in the sense of time. I'm very respectful from their boundaries, but I try to work with people that understand and have some sort of passion within my team. Now, that can be harder when, you have a set of rules in departments that don't work as close to you. Like I'm outside of the campus. So a lot of people on campus don't see exactly our day-to-day operations, but through our results, through your reports, throughout the stories you share, people trust you. This person has this number of success story a year. We are on track with our goals. In those relationships, they start trusting you. And after the first grant, they're okay. I know you know how to do it, so let's go. And I think my mom always says hard work pays off, and I think that your reputation follows you, so you get people to trust you through your hard work.
And then I kind of asked it, but gently, but I wanted to ask specifically, like being a woman in the South, in Alabama, not necessarily like a very progressive place.
My friend also said that, like, why are you moving? But honestly, I gotta say, even in my experience, like when I grew up in Pennsylvania, a small town, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Eastern Pennsylvania. Now the Lehigh Valley is pretty big, and you would find all kinds of cultures, a lot bigger. We moved back to the small. I can ever say that I had or I felt a difference in a bad way. I think I was very well welcome since I got here. My new boss, the senior vice chancellor I had at that time, he introduced me to mayor, economic development. He included me in Rotary, so I'm a Rotarian. Everybody was so willing to work, collaborate. I can say in Pennsylvania, I remember one of my first clients as part of a nonprofit organization I was a advisor for. She said, when I saw you, I thought they sent me a kid to rescue my business. Instead, I never received, and she was nice. Like after we had a conversation, she was very nice. But I feel like, honestly, and funny enough, opposite to what a lot of people told me before I moved, I never received any situation where I felt uncomfortable or weird. People were just nice to me, super willing to partner, work, receive the fresh ideas, take the experience of what I've done in my previous community, being able to implement new ideas. I remember my first conversation with the director of economic development, and he was like, I need to write down all the ideas that you're giving me. We need to work together. And people were so welcoming. Same with my son. I have, my husband and my 10-year-old. And Milo was like, Mommy, people here smile at us at Publix, So when in New York, if somebody is smiling at you, you'll be like, why? So to me, I cannot say I have had any situations. It's been really positive.
That's very inspiring, and thank you for sharing. So let's talk a little bit about mentorship. And I wanted to ask specifically, if I'm a founder in the community, how do I find out about your center, and what would my journey with you look like?
Sometimes people say, and my clients have told me, that we are a hidden gem in our community, but we're not trying to be. We really are not. We have the small business development centers are all around the country. We are supported by the Small Business Administration. So we are one of the public resources people should know about when starting a business, and when they Google us or Google small business support, we come out. But we try to keep that engagement. Sometimes I know it's hard, like in more rural communities and more scattered communities. My territory is pretty scattered, 10 counties with cities that or municipalities that might be like an hour apart from each other. But I try to keep that outreach and that relationship throughout more local organizations like Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development that deal either with manufacturing or industry in retail. So usually when a person wants to start a business, they think chamber. So if they are lacking of information or they need support, the chamber can refer them to us, and they have been a key partner in spreading the word that we exist. But also the digital, like more technology and doing more digital activity. I have used a few of our webinars to broadcast them on Facebook so people see that we do provide in value to whatever their venture is. Not everything, because we report on the number of attendees and we need people to sign up and actually attend to a full webinar if we do a virtual event. But they see that there is important information and that we're not trying to sell them anything, or our first consultation is free and then you would have to pay something. We want them to see the real value in our services. So yes, the digital platforms help us a lot in community relationships.
And then I attended the webinar. I want to get some help with my business plan, or I need a loan. So how would I engage with you, and what kind of help can I expect?
So you register, you'll report in the number of people we see, we talk, and the time spent with them. So you need to register in our site. We do an initial meeting where we understand your needs, your areas of pain where you need support. And from there, either we help you to set up an account in our software that we use for digital business plans, or I assign you an advisor in marketing or whatever area you're looking to work on. It can be government contracting, capital access, international trade. So we assign the right expert to you.
And then what can I expect? How frequently can I meet with the expert, and how long does the engagement take?
I think each office has a different dynamic because they have different capacity, personnel. So right now we're having a pretty high number of signups because we've been visiting our military base that is close to us, always being in touch with people. So in my case, because I do a lot of the intro calls, you would see that if you sign up today, Kirsten would take probably next day, she would email you and with my calendar link, and you can find a date and time that works for you in my calendar. Some weeks you would find it in the same week. Sometimes it's pretty tight and you would find something for next week. But in my case, in my center, I don't limit the number of times that you talk to an advisor. It's at your own pace, but you also have to be accountable for whatever assignment you have. So if we're working on your business plan, well, in order for me to continue meeting with you weekly, you need to complete the sections over, like on your business plan. I cannot go over and over about the same 2 sections that you haven't made any progress. So usually my advisors keep the rhythm of our clients as long as they are making progress. And I sometimes I have a conversation with potential founder that says, you know what, I realize I'm not ready just yet. And that's completely valid. And we have a couple conversations and say, okay, you're going to save up for a year and then we will talk again. And that's completely fine. I know that being an entrepreneur is not always like a decision that you make super quickly.
And for you personally, do you do just those introductory calls to decide who to send this person to, or do you take on some folks to guide them through the process yourself?
I do take on my advisor heart. It never goes away. So I like to talk to people, and especially Spanish speaking, if I would have another general business advisor, but I am the only one in the state that speaks Spanish as a general business advisor in what we call compliance, like registration, steps to formalize your business, that part. So I stay with my clients that speak Spanish unless they're working on marketing, because my marketing advisors also speak Spanish. So that's the way I transfer them. With some, also there are industries where I am very familiar. Like I have my beauty line, my skincare. So some clients are like, I'm here to work with you. So they stay in my schedule. And I'm like, that we might not be able to meet weekly, but maybe we can do something monthly or bi-weekly, and they're fine with that.
So what does your typical meeting look like? Like how long is it, and how do you structure the conversation with the client?
So it can be from a 15-minute conversation over the phone where I take notes of the client needs, the whole story, my action points, and I send them summary of what we spoke in their homework, to 2 hours when I reserve 2 hours for the client, because we're intensively working on a loan application for the local revolving loan fund. And we need to, on that day, we're sitting down creating projections, filling out forms, and we're reviewing the package, and then that day is going out. So I know sometimes, every client wants that 2-hour meeting because clients end up becoming, part of we end up becoming part of very personal piece of their life, which is their business. So they want to tell me absolutely every single aspect that's going on. Now we've solved the partnership, and now, he was my friend, and they tell me the full story. And I understand, business is very sentimental somehow to some degree. So I'm like, okay, but we're here to work on this business plan so we can get the loan. And it can range from that 15 minutes. Now I don't have much time to, get very often those meetings, but just last week, one of my business owners who was very, very, very young, got accepted as a choice student. So he had like a list of 15 topics that we needed to get done in that meeting. And we got a lot done, but it was like an hour and a half meeting.
Thank you. That gives me a very tangible perspective on what exactly your work looks like. And I'm curious, in your consulting work, you work with business owners as well. Do you see a difference between engaging with clients as part of your center versus the work that you were doing?
Yeah. So right now, I am very aware of the things that I need to observe as part of my director. So I never take my director hat off, because I need to observe what their needs are. Is this something that I hear very frequently? So I'm always looking for trends and things that I could do better. When I was a consultant, I was very focused on getting things done just for the client without thinking, is this something that we see very often? When I had my notes in my client tracking system, I will notice that I have a lot of contractors. So I would tell an organization I work with, we should launch a program for construction contractors, or we should launch a program for women, or, I always had that background of analyzing the data, but now I think it's stronger. Like I really, I really look into that in order to create new programs. So I think that part of me grew to be more detailed and more observant.
So you are again using you are not just in the business. If we consider this like a small business, you're working on the business, how to refine it. This is my favorite question. I always like to ask about challenges in advising or mentoring people. So it's great when everything is working great, but there are different types of people. and some people might be harder to deal with than others, or they might not be a good fit, or there are like emotional components involved. Have you come across situations like that? Is there something you could share?
My career as an advisor is longer than people believe me it is. So I've come to situations where, I was working with an organization located in a low-income neighborhood and doing a lot of entrepreneurship activity trainings and things like that. And sometimes we would take calls because everybody was closed, and one of my phone number would get in their directory, although I was a business advisor, but they had all their programs as a shelter, food bank, like all their programs. And I think my hardest client was the one that was facing a suicide situation, and she called me. I stayed with her on the phone for a long time, and thankfully they did train us when we would get those calls, because it was somehow being a thing for that organization. But I never thought I would use that training, like, ever. And so I had to call the suicide line and ask them, like, to join the call, and they did help me to de-escalate. That was one of the hardest experiences, I came across meeting with clients that were experiencing family and abuse. So knowing that she has a dream and that being an entrepreneur fulfills that in the financial independency that they need in order to escape the abuse situation, it was very emotional, and it was really hard for me, knowing that today I had that appointment and I was preparing to be super effective because that person had a very short time to meet with me, prepare, and then leave, and making sure that I never contact her through phone, but always was email, and that I never used ever the wrong email address. So it was like a lot of making sure that I was protecting that person. Those have been hard. And then in the other side, of course, you have the clients that wish you could give them more, or that you could write the business plan for them, and they get mad because you didn't write the business plan for them, or they wish you would be their operations consultant and be running that business. And here we don't compete with consultants, because we are here to provide the know-how, and I will hold your hand and teach you how, but at the end the work is yours. When you pay a consultant, that person gets the job done. Here I'm teaching you how to do it yourself if you cannot afford it. And it's also a different pace, because you know that a consultant, you pay X amount of money and it's going to be done by this deadline. Here it's completely different. So we're really not competition for private consultants. But in those situations, I feel like they're really bad ones. I have already faced them so far. So when the client is mad at me or gives me a bad review because with a credit of 300, I can find them a loan, I'm not her personally, because I already faced really difficult situations with my clients.
Thank you for giving those very specific details. And it looks like from your stories, those challenges mostly come from personal situations versus like business situations. Although this, you mentioned 500 credit score to get the loan, that's pretty ambitious.
Yeah, sometimes we have the clients that don't have their credit ready for a business loan. The challenge is also about the myths that are out there, where people think that there are a lot of grants to start a business, and they think that we are the gatekeepers of that money. Misconceptions are there. Misconceptions that you don't need personal credit to obtain a business loan, because I already have an EIN and that's all I need to get a business loan. A lot of misconceptions that we try to demystify in our educational events or programs. Sometimes I think my biggest role in an entrepreneur's success is be the missing part of information they need. And I consider that the key of our role is to be the missing piece of information in a role in the journey of an entrepreneur. I had family that preferred to speak Spanish when they were expanding to Troy from a very small municipality, opening their store here. They had multiple stores, but Troy somehow is bigger and has more licensing requirements, and they just didn't know how to do it. Good entrepreneurs, they had everything. They just needed to know the licensing process, and I was that person, and they're very successful here. So understanding that we don't run those businesses, but we are there to fill that little gap that they need in order to succeed. Sometimes we cannot, just because we cannot change, credit scores, or sometimes we can just not write that check. But that's our role as an advisors. And sometimes the challenges, I think, most of the challenges come from personal situations with our clients.
Thank you. And I'm excited that you talked a success story as well. I don't want to leave this with just a negative example. I'm sure successes. I wanted to ask, you mentioned your online business. Could you talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, we have 5 online stores. We launched our 5th one during COVID, which is personal protection, hand sanitizers, and antibacterial soaps. We launched that because I didn't know if people were going to use makeup and hair care ever again during COVID. I was like, if people are working from home, are they ever going to use makeup? Is this going to ever happen? So we work with an amazing lab in a team of people that allow us to create different products. So we develop those 2 products, but we have hair care, we have makeup, the personal protection. My husband is a motorcycle racer. So we have parts and gear for motorcycles. What we do is distribution, B2B, business to business. So we are wholesalers to smaller stores. And so a lot of that it's in Latin America, and we launch our business through our fair or trade expo. And then we acquire a lot of clients, and a lot of that has been referrals, and that I train my clients, the owners of this smaller stores. I train them in how to advise their customers, and they can do direct sales. So a lot of that is we use apps like Telegram, like to build our communities, Telegram, WhatsApp. So I'm not interested in having a retail website. So you would find that in our website, everything is more B2B or business to business in Latin America. So a lot of that is in Spanish.
I'm glad that I've asked, because I kind of heard online business, but now you give context, and it sounds like a pretty cool idea. So how do you manage to balance building your business empire, which seems to be pretty sophisticated model involving selling to customers and selling at scale, and doing this work at Troy?
My hobby is the best business partner. So I am the creative mind, and he brings me down to earth in terms of operations and being realistic. We are working on our expansion in the US, which has been pretty big challenge, bringing everything we built throughout years of research and labels and things like that to English and adapt it. I can tell you that purchasing habits are completely different. In the United States, I Amazon everything, just you put your credit card on any website, because you know that if you get scammed, you probably can call your bank and have fraud protection, things of that nature. In Latin America, purchasing habits are very different. And that's what I warn you about the website. People are not putting their credit cards anywhere. They need to know you. So many or most of our operation and customer service are through Telegram and WhatsApp. And those are our main catalogs. If you want to find, so it's leveraging technology in the right channels, what I always talk about with my clients. And when people think about channels in the US, you always think about website, Instagram, and Facebook, and maybe TikTok if your client base is on TikTok. Mine, it's not. My clients could not care less about a website. We do have social media presence because somehow, we produce content and we give it to them so they can post, and when they buy from me, they don't have to worry about taking pictures, producing content, looking nice for pictures. They only have to worry about selling and knowing the product. But their habits and their culture of buying things is completely different. So I don't do things that are not necessary or irrelevant for my client. I don't try to be everywhere. I don't try to maintain a website that I don't need to maintain. I work on maintaining my relationships, and my WhatsApp constantly rings, and I have my chat box, but they also know that after hours I can answer them, and they know that usually around 6 p.m. they would hear from me, and that is always okay with them. And even in the meantime, Andres is going to answer them. We also have a customer service team because customer service is huge in Latin America, and they want to talk and hear your voice. So there has to be, hey there.
This is my son, Eric.
Hey, Eric, nice meeting you. My customer service is the key element. I focus on the areas that my business that really need me. I learned not trying to be everywhere. I did kill myself trying to build beautiful websites, coded nicely, customized years ago for each thing. And then I saw my traffic here is really inexistent, but we still have pretty good sales. So building nice catalogs that are compatible with the apps that people use to contact us, train my customer service people. And I still have clients that I want to talk to Juliana, so I take them after 6. But my hobby is a great operations manager, so that's his full-time job. Although we have automated in many things, and that's why allowed me. I was working in my business, so everyday operations, and at some point we delegated a lot that I said, I could be doing something else. I have really good customer service people. And right now my husband is at that point when he said, we've done pretty well by delegating. We should use more of our time thinking in how to expand to the US. And that's his project. That has been his project for a lot of this year and last year.
I love it that you were in the middle of being not only intrapreneur, but entrepreneur with your business. So you know exactly what you're talking about when you meet a founder who comes to the center.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes they are like, you understand the struggle, or sometimes they don't know because, I'm not that's not my business card. But, well, you don't understand. And I'm like, I do, because I've seen the challenges. Or sometimes I have clients that have similar business to my parents, and I'm like, don't do that. And they're like, oh, how do you know that? Well, I live it. I live through it.
What excites you the most for the next 12 months?
The projects that we have and the possible partnerships that we have in the works. I think the good results in our projects and the delivery we have done has opened more doors. So it excites me to see that we're growing, that we can train the new generation of advisors. So we are in new projects. We are including grad students that I get to see how they become business advisors, and they didn't even know that being a business advisor was a job. So it excites me to share my experience in, downloading what I know how to do into somebody that can use it for their career as well. In launching our other business or trying to launch it in the US, it's always an amazing journey. It's stressful, but it amazes me to see where it's going to go.
Thank you so much, Juliana, for your time and for your answers.
Thank you for having me, and I hope this information is useful for other people.
Thank you for tuning in to the Slice of Mentorship podcast with Juliana Bolivar Sanchez. I do hope you enjoyed the conversation with this amazing young woman who has already accomplished quite a lot. So if you're interested in mentorship or in building or scaling a mentorship program, check out my website, traction5.com. Traction 5 is a SaaS platform that we created specifically to help streamline the management of team mentorship and innovation programs. And I look forward to engaging with you on the next episode.